Hey everyone, Tony D with a hot take and possibly some breaking news from a reliable source who heard it from another reliable source. It looks like the San Diego Comic Con may be canceled for the next 2 years. Now, certainly it was going to be canceled this year, um, only because a lot of the stuff that goes on with an organization like the San Diego Comic Con has to happen months ahead of time, the organization. And really, at this stage of the game, we don't know where we're at, in terms of having a comic book convention. We really don't know if that's even possible this summer. That's a big thing for me because I was planning on gearing up and hitting the comic book conventions big time this year, and I don't know if I'll get to do one this summer, which will be very unusual for me. I usually hit a few. I was all set to do the Ocean City Comic Con, which was going to take place in April. I think it was going to be this weekend. This weekend it would have been, man. Which is all Ocean City Comic Con's a fun con. I get to go to Manco's. My nephew comes out sometimes. I stay at my folks have a place in Ocean City, so it's a great time for me. They spent some money. They had LeVar Burton last time, and they've had a few actors, give little panel discussions in the room, and it's a great time. Great time. Sad that we couldn't have it this year, and who knows if we'll have it next year. We'll see. But yeah, the world of comics, I think, is really taking it on the chin. The other big news story today in comics is Marvel had some pencils down situations. They have asked some of their freelancers to finally stop working on certain projects. They had projects in the pipeline that were going to connect up with Black Widow and Taskmaster, the whole movie, and a few other characters. I'm sure they got in the pipeline, and now they got to put those all on hold because they realized why we spending this money. I think that's kind of a mistake for Marvel. Being a Disney entity, unless they plan on completely closing their comic book division, I don't see why they would stop. They have the money. They could stockpile inventory stories for the next year. And why not have them? Why not have them ready to go? This would help them greatly in terms of their promotion and their PR. They could, even reevaluate how they were publishing things, maybe put together, some mini series instead of, they could decide, well, let's just go straight to a trade paperback. That might be better. I think they are missing the opportunity only because they're an arm of Disney and they have very deep pockets. However, Disney is getting killed with the parks. I mean, the parks are closed, and apparently that's a ton of their revenue. So maybe it's finally caught up to them, and they're just like, look, we just got to pull the plug on everything until we get rolling again, which is a shame because I think things are going to start to get rolling in the next 2 weeks. I think in the next 2 weeks, certain stores are going to start to open, or at the very least, people are going to be thinking about opening. Maybe they're going to at least go to their stores, see the situation. If you have perishable product, throw that out and, clean everything down. I mean, you're certainly going to have to do that. Some of the state governments, probably New Jersey, will get a little too involved in that and probably send some state people around and go, you better clean your store. How much could you clean? And plus these stores have been closed for weeks, so any virus should be off the surfaces, and any basic cleaning really would just be a formality at that point. I would think. We don't know everything about this beer virus, so who knows? But I mean, they've said that it's lasted on surfaces as long as I've heard everything from 9 days to all the way up to 17 days. But, and then I saw a chart. It depended on the surface. It lasted on some surfaces more than others. I got boxes and bags of things that I'm going to eat later that have been sitting on a table for days just to be safe. So who knows? But certainly in the world of comics, these comics have been sitting on the shelf for God knows how long. weeks. I would think they would be safe, and these guys need to get open up again. At the very least, I think, some people are just going to show up at the shop, grab a big stack of books, and go right back home in the quarantine for another week or two until they figure out what they're doing. Or maybe they're still going to work at home for the next God knows how many weeks. Certainly, the schools are not going to reopen here, I don't think, and they're done for the year. So kids are going to be home, still learning at school. The teachers will be teaching, I think, from home on their computers. I think there might be a slight bump for the comic book stores if they manage to open in the next couple of weeks. I also think down the road it could be, even though it does not look good for the publishers at this stage or the comic book stores, I think for the comic book conventions, especially your local con, it could look very promising if we reach the point where people are willing to go out again. I think a lot of people will in the summer eventually go out. I think by the time June hits and July, certainly people will be like, screw it, I'm going out. I mean, I think a lot of people are at that point now, right? And I think if that happens and some savvy con organizers get their acts together, you could see comic book conventions bridge the gap between now and whenever the comic book industry gets its act together. Or if the comic book industry completely collapses, you could see the cons being the last vestige of the last place you can really get new comics. Because if the comic book stores close, most of them, even, where are you going to get your comics? I mean, a lot of people will go online. They'll either go to digital or they'll get some sort of mail order distribution from either the publishers directly. Alterna Comics is doing that. They're also going directly to stores, and they're real good about that. They're used to doing that kind of stuff, so good for them. But I think comic book conventions would be one of the many a place where people would go, well, I'm going to go to the comic book convention because it'll just be sort of like a one-time deal, right? You go to the I haven't been out, I haven't been around people. I'm going to go to the comic book convention because I haven't gotten comics in months. Let me go get some. Now, there is the thought that the beer virus has gotten people out of their habits of weekly comics, and that's true. There are a lot of people, unfortunately, because of the poor quality of comics these days, they've gotten out of comics, and they were just hanging on by a thread anyway. Those people, I think, were on their way out anyway. Those people are buying comics that suck. They're buying usually from the big two, and they're buying out of sheer loyalty and to keep their runs going. More for collectors than readership. The kind of guys who go to comic book conventions are twofold. They are collectors, a lot of them are. In fact, those are the money guys. You get the high rollers there who want some cool Silver Age stuff, want to spend some real money. But you also have a lot of fans who are readers, and they want to buy a giant stack of comics for a dollar per 10 or a dollar a pound, and crazy stuff like that, where they get a giant stack of comics like this and they go home and they just read through them and they don't really care about the condition. Those are my kinds of comic fans. Those are the people I tend to sell to. They buy my comics because I can personalize them, and Jersey Devil is a big seller, of course, in South Jersey. I still have 12 issues of that. Still have a few issues of The Travelers, which was probably more popular comics. Still have some Simpsons comics left over that I'm still selling. I still have The Fix, the 4-issue miniseries I did for that. And of course, I have the Piney's books and FU I'm Italian books and Wokistan books and a few other odds and ends that I've done over the years. So, for me, it's an opportunity to sell my wares. And, last con I did before all this hit was the Swedesboro con, and which was, I don't think they've ever had a comic book convention in Swedesboro. It was like a first-time con at a hotel, and it was pretty good. I did pretty well there. I sold a good number of Piney's books, and my other stuff as well. And had a great time, met some new fans, and so I think if the regular Philly con, I think the guys there are diehard comic fans. There's always the same group, about 20 or 30 guys who always go to that show, plus a few more. I think they'll definitely come out in droves. They'll all come out. I think probably the numbers are closer to like 60 to 80, but like half of them come like every other con. So I think when that con re-ups again, the local con with a loyal following, I think you'll see the first one of that be a big deal. I think people will come out of the woodwork, which will be ironic because then it'll be like, well, we got to social distance and we got to have a con and you got to get close to the table, but you can't get too close to the people, and people will be wearing masks probably, but it'll be July or August, and hopefully by then we will see almost non-existent virus by that point, because it is true that once we get into the hotter months, it's very difficult for the virus to live on surfaces. The heat kills it, and particularly the sun, direct sunlight. It's kind of like a vampire, is my understanding. But I think it has to be over a certain temperature. I want to say that temperature is over like 70, 72 degrees, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but so I think when we get to that, it'll really reduce the transmission to a large degree. Plus, people will probably still be masking up. I suspect that people are going to be wearing a mask far beyond the need to wear a mask. I think people are going to be wearing masks all the way into next year. Certainly through next. They're going to wear them like for the next 6 months. Then we're going to be in the winter time for the next flu season. They'll definitely wear them for that. And then probably next spring, people will finally start to go, do I really need to wear this mask? But we'll see. It's going to be a long road ahead. God knows what the money situation will be. I know I'm a little worried about that, but hey, I'm a freelancer. I can work from home. I love to work at home, and we'll see if I could sell some comics online. Speaking of which, it's back to Twitter and back to the noise over there, and that's the latest update in the world of comics.